Hi guys, if you are having a bit of trouble getting your correlation matrix to look beautiful and APA formatted, I'm going to give you some tips on how to just tinker around with the correlation matrix that you've been given for your output, and it will make your life a lot easier. So it's just a matter of knowing how to manipulate a table. It's simpler than you probably think. The other thing that this will hopefully demonstrate, a few people have been asking on CloudDeacon why you will end up with one less variable across the top of the table than down the side. And as we go through the process of tidying up this table, that will probably become apparent, I think. But it's definitely it's something that's much easier to demonstrate visually than it is to try to explain in words. So let's have a look at the table. The first thing we need to do is look at what information is in here. There's a whole bunch of information in here that we don't need. You'll notice that there are a diagonal row of ones in the correlation matrix, and if you look at what each of those ones represent, it's actually each variable correlated against itself. So in this one it's neuroticism correlated with neuroticism. This one is extroversion correlated with extroversion. So they're perfect correlations. SPSS correlates every variable you give it with every other variable that you give it. So it says, I'm going to correlate neuroticism with extroversion, but I'm also going to correlate extroversion with neuroticism, which is this variable here. Let me just highlight these for you. So it's saying, all right, you've given me all these variables, I'm going to do all of these correlations. Extroversion correlates with neuroticism, but I'm also going to correlate neuroticism with extroversion, because as far as the program knows, they are two different variables. They correlate everything in both directions. For us, it's the same thing. It doesn't matter which way you do it, it's the same output. So you'll be able to see that the bottom sort of left diagonal variables, values, is actually a mirror image to the top right sort of diagonal. So they're the same values. It's just like one half of the paper's been folded over and all the scores have come out on the second half. That's not a very good analogy, but it's the same stuff. So there's 2 times the information in here than we need. So that's all stuff we can get rid of. There's also the significance and the n value for each of these correlations, and we don't need this in our correlation matrix. They're important there for interpreting those scores, for you to read them and work out which ones are significant, but you don't need to have them in your correlation matrix. All we want is the Pearson's R values. So to get started, I think sometimes the easiest thing to do is to make all of the cells in the table visible. So you can click around the table, or you can even just click on that little box there and it'll highlight all the potential cells, and then you can, using this, you can just highlight all of the borders in the table. Sometimes that's more helpful if you want to see all of the cells that are in there. So we can start off by getting rid of the significance and the ends. So you can just highlight them, right click and delete those rows. You can just do that for all of them. So I'm going to pause the video here so you don't have to sit and watch me deleting a whole bunch of rows, and I'll come back when it's all done. Alrighty, so here we've got all of the statistics and, the p-values, the significance levels, and the n's taken out. So we've already got a much simpler table now. Let's have a look at, we've got this Pearson correlation row actually. We don't need that. SPSS includes that so that it can tell you what analysis it ran. So we can get rid of that. And you'll find actually if you delete that, then it'll kind of drag your top variables along. So just in order to do that, you can just split the top cell. Just click on split cells and it'll split it for you, and then you can get rid of them. So I don't know if you really need to drag that across, you probably don't. So you can highlight all of those and delete that column. Okay, so now our table's just getting simpler and simpler, but we've still got heaps of information in here, and conscientiousness should be spelled right, that we don't need. So basically we can get rid of this whole top right diagonal because it's all replicated information from down below. So you can just go through and look at each cell if you want to. You can see that it's all replicated. So we don't need any of the ones, and we can actually get rid of everything on that very top line. We don't need that at all. And from all of the ones across, this is all the mirrored information in the table that we don't need to present twice. So we can get rid of everything from each of the ones across. And you'll see when we get down to the bottom, voila, we've got a blank column. So this is why, once you take out all the redundant information, you'd find that you don't need to have all of these columns in here. So you can get rid of the subjective wellbeing column completely. That means you'll have 6 variables across the top, and you'll have 7 variables down the bottom. Alrighty, so we've got a pretty nice looking table here. The last thing to have a look at, if you go back to the example that I gave you in the results video, which is this one, you'll notice there that there are still the one cells, I guess, the correlations of to the same variable with itself, and in this instance each of those correlations is just denoted with a line. So anyone reading a correlation matrix table will understand that you can't correlate one variable with itself. So we've got that situation here now for our last one, so you can just put in a line, actually not the dashed line, perhaps one of these. No, if you can think of a nice way to put a straight line, you can. That's a good way to put a straight line. It's just going to be dashed that way. You guys are probably better at Word than I am, but something along these lines is fine. And then the last thing you need to do is just make it APA format, and that bit I know you guys know how to do, so you know how to take out the vertical lines and only have particular horizontal lines in there, and I'll let you guys refer to your APA manuals for how to set it out that way. So you can actually just chop a lot of the stuff out of the SPSS output, and it's all there for you, and it's all done. Thanks guys.